It is Tuesday. Why am I on my own?
What? You were I was waiting. I was timing. It was Tuesday is what I was going to say, but at the end. Anyway. Oh,
we talked to Liz today.
We did.
And she was freaking incredible. And we talked about all the things, and it completely went in a different direction than I thought we were going to go. I was like, all styling, everything. People are going to know how to dress. And we were like, business, entrepreneurship, starting a business as a woman, like fierce friendships, starting relationships with respect, having difficult conversations, resiliency.
Still not learning how to say conversations correctly.
It'll just never happen.
Will never
I enjoy
happen.
mine better.
Conversations. So welcome to this conversation. See, just doesn't...
Can everybody just spam Christina?
No.
I just want everyone to send her voice notes saying conversations.
Conversations. Is it something you want to say? It's a conversation.
Conversation.
Anyway, but yes, we did. We talked, and we'll do a lot more on our socials. So make sure you follow us on socials, because I'm going to go and visit Liz and do some reels and really talk about the style side of things. But we really went in a different direction, and I think you're going to love it. It's for anyone who's starting up their own business, who's in the middle of being in their own business, who's wanting to create a collective or anything that requires another human being, or where you might want another human being involved. We just had such an amazing chat, and that is just so filled with gratitude. Like, what a grateful woman. She really is a breath of wonderful fresh air.
Yeah, it was an epic episode. I think everyone's going to love it. And like Christina said, we're going to have a lot more content for you from Liz.
That's right. Enjoy.
Enjoy. You're listening to Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquel Rudenberg and Christina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning.
Oh, hello. Oh, Liz and I had the most amazing time at Project Wardrobe. Gosh, it was not even that long ago. It was like a month ago. And I was on holiday I was going to be on holiday in Victoria, and she shifted so much around for me to be able to let me have my break. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. Thank you for being so accommodating. And secondly, before I get into the bio, we talked about weight, because I sent my weight, I sent my sizes, and she replied like a total badass saying, thank you for being honest. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's really shitty that people lie a lot about their weight. And it's a lot of the time size and weight, because it's such a tough industry where people think that that's a decision-making element. And things are changing, but Liz needs to know as the person that's dressing you, what's going to actually look good on you, not what to try and squeeze you into so that you can subscribe to the norms that we don't like in this industry. So anyway, that was my little sidebar, but that's how I fell in love with Liz. And then I was like, and then I got to Project Wardrobe and just fell in love. You can see one of my reels on my Instagram with me and Liz hanging out for an afternoon, trying on awesome clothes. But we wanted to have a conversation today because I think there's so much that we can talk. There are so many things that we're about to brunch over. Liz grew up in the same house in Burnaby. That is a rarity. And is a Burnabian? Burnaby? Is a Burnaby?
Burnabian, I guess.
A Burnabian?
I guess.
A Burnaboo. And then went to Europe and came back from London, worked for a year, realized that she still wanted to explore, and then went to Australia. So much traveling, ended up back in Kitsilano, so kind of still in the Vancouver neighborhood, and then did just a whole bunch of different things, like worked for a wine agency, worked at a friend's restaurant, like just lived your life and learned all along the way. I love the idea of starting the company called Hotwares, micro fleece accessories that had hot pockets for hot packs. So definitely, if you've ever worked in the film industry, hot pockets for times when you're on set and it's freezing, very important. So then you started working with Lisa, Lisa Masi in 2011.
Yep.
And Lisa's now your assistant in the wardrobe department, or was your assistant in the wardrobe department, and now your project partner in 50-50 capacity in Project Wardrobe. So definitely want to dig into that, because obviously Raquel and I do this 50-50 thing as well. And we have this amazing team of people. So I really want to get into the business side of things and how you kind of started that up and why. And you have two lovely children, 6-year-old Emerson, a 14-year-old daughter Sophie, and a partner who you dated in high school. I love this. And then you drifted apart, and then you came back together, and that's so wonderful. I love having conversations with guests that interlace their personal lives with their professional, because when your personal life informs your professional life, I think you are just fuller than if you're just talking about your work, because that's who we are. And that's what led to me having a conversation with Liz more than so many more people I've worked with in costume, because they were there for a job and Liz is here for an experience.
That's a good way to put it.
And I like that, and we got along like, I'm not going to say a house on fire, because everything's on fire right now.
Yes.
That's not a good joke. So welcome, Liz. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you both for having me. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
I want for people to understand your background. How did you get into styling? You know, how did you, and then also, why did you start Project Wardrobe? Because I know those are two very different questions.
Yes. Well, I was lucky that when I moved to my apartment in Kitsilano, I became really close friends with the lady that lived below me. And she had a dog and I had a dog. And I would sit on my little patio, typical Kitsilano, like tiny little balcony. And I'd sit there and I'd drink my wine. And she'd be down in her little patio on the first floor and she'd be drinking her wine. So she would sit back and she'd sit there drinking her wine and I'd be over the counter. And finally we just said, this is silly. Like, why don't you either come down or you come up? And so we started this really wonderful friendship, and she was just a gem. She's just a lovely, lovely woman, and she's a wardrobe stylist in commercials. And so at that point, I was doing marketing for the wine agency, which was a great job. It was a really great job, great people. But it's a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and you either are that person or you're not. And I am not. And I realized that if I didn't have a reason to quit, but if I didn't quit, I would wake up one day and I would be 45 years old. This was 20 years ago. And I would be in the same job. And it would have passed me by. I just would have kept going. So against some, other people's better judgment, I quit. And I started working for a friend's restaurant in Yaletown, which I did for almost a year, which was really fun. It was probably too much fun. Was it not my most productive year at all, which is an understatement. But then Catherine and I were still friends, obviously. And so she said, I guess she saw my year and the sort of downward spiral that I was going on, and said, listen, why don't you come out and try this? I think you'd really like it. I think you'd be good at it. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll give it a go. So I went out with her and her assistant on a job, and it was great. I was like, this is pretty great. And then she was starting a commercial, and her assistant had to go off to do something else. And she was left to start this big job with no assistant. So she said, do you want to do this? If you want to do this, you've got to be all in. Like, it's pretty 24/7 for the time that you're on the project. And I said, yes. And honestly, we just never looked back. It just was full on from then. And that was in 2001. And I'm just eternally grateful for her, because she got me in, but she also taught me so much. So I worked with her for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years. I worked with a couple other stylists. And then I started keying my jobs, which means they're my jobs and I have my assistant. And so I started doing that, and that's what I'm doing now. So Lisa and I met.
I have a question though about that, because, okay, when you start to key your own jobs, how do you do it in such a way that you're not taking away from the person who brought you up?
It's such a good point, because it can be in any industry, really. When you want to move to that next step, you are essentially the person who got you in their competition. And honestly, it's tricky, but there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And I just had open communication with her and just said, some of the jobs for an assistant that you have to do, I was just kind of done with it. And I just said, I really want to move to the next step. And she was extremely supportive. She was extremely supportive. Like she just, and we didn't do it all of a sudden. It was sort of more, okay, well, there's a job coming up that I can apply for, that I can put my name forward for, that you're not up for, or that you don't want to do, or something like that. So we did that.
Can't do.
Or can't
not
do.
Available for.
Exactly. So we did that, and then just kind of broke away a little bit that way, and eventually just started working with the same people, and they kept hiring me. And then if I wasn't booked on my own job, I would obviously assist her. And it worked out really well because she ended up going into TV and film world, which is a completely separate beast from commercials. So it's more of a Monday to Friday, 9 to whatever. The hours are insane. So she started doing her own thing in that world too. So it worked out. It worked out really well. I was just so grateful to her, and still am. Yeah.
I had no idea that there was a difference between that.
Sorry?
I had no idea there was a difference between commercial and film. I would have just thought it was the same. What are the differences?
So commercials are project based, right? So they are, well, they all are, but commercials are small project based. So for me, I do prep, then I do the shoot, and then you wrap. So if it's a 3-day shoot, or say for this one I just did, it was a 4-day shoot. I had 6 days to prep and 1 day to wrap. So it's an 11-day job. They range from anywhere between, 10, 11, 12, which is on the bigger side, down to like 4. And that's it. Once you've done your wrap and you've given them your invoice, you're done. You're out. You never have to think about it again. You don't do it, and you just move on to the next project. And TV and film, and I've never done a lot of it. I haven't done it at all, but from the people that I work with and talk to that have, and just knowing the hours is, so for if you're on a series, and if there's anybody watching that or listening that does this, they might say that's not quite true, but this was my take on it. It is Monday to Friday, and you start out 7 a.m. or whatever it is on Monday, but the hours are so long. They go so late, and then the next day has to start a little bit later. And so it's what do they call it? Fraturday, because Friday shoots into Saturday morning, and then you've got Sunday to recover, and you go back on Monday. So it's all encompassing. I don't know how they do it. I honestly, I have so much respect, because I don't know how they do it, because the hours are crazy. And for me, that would beat me down. That would beat me down, knowing that I had to keep this schedule up and not be able to see my family as much, and not know when I'm going to have a break and things like that. So my saying has always been, you get the happiest people in commercial land, because if you're dealing with a jackass director or something like that, I have to deal with that person for 6 days, and I can stay my happy-go-lucky self for 6 days. They're not going to bring me down, right? I can just still be myself, and just, but if you tell me that I have to deal with this person for 6 weeks, or God forbid 6 months, that's going to beat you down. So you get the happiest and the nicest people in commercial land, because they always see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a break coming up. And so, the stability is not there in commercial land, which isn't great for everybody, but I love it. I love it.
But that feeds into why you started Project Wardrobe as well, an element of that, right?
Definitely.
So how did you, because I love the resilience in entrepreneurship that we are starting, Raquel and I are starting to learn in a big way as well, where you have to be so resilient.
Gosh. Resilient.
So tell me about,
I don't know. Or maybe a little bit of both. I don't know.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both, right? Just faith. You just got to have faith. So Lisa started being my sister. She's a seamstress by trade. So she started working with me in commercials as a seamstress, and then started being my assistant. And we just work together now, and just a complete partnership. It's definitely a complete partnership. And so from there's one massive rental house here in Burnaby, in the Lower Mainland, that film, TV, and commercials and print use for whether it be contemporary clothing or vintage or anything like that. And it's amazing. It's called Vancouver Prop and Costume, and they're wonderful. The ladies are spectacular. But but there's always the same things that you would need for each job. So you finish a 6-day job, and then you get a couple of days break or whatever, and then you start the next job, and you find that you're using the same things, or you're buying the same things over and over again. So what I started doing was I started to hold on to things, or I'd buy things to keep so that I could keep using them. A lot of stylists do. Lots of them do. In commercial land, a lot of people have their own stock. But my stock was getting so big, Lisa and I got all of these massive suitcases and hockey bags, and we would bring them to fittings. And you open them all up, and people used to joke, we used to call them body bags, because they would joke that, do you have a body stuffed in there? Because they were so full. And then one day I was at a studio with them, and a very, very good friend of mine saw this, and she's like, what is all of this? And I said, it's my kit. She goes, you need to open a rental house. And that sort of started the seed. That really started the seed. I'm like, this town really needed another one specifically for contemporary wardrobe.
I just can't believe there's only one.
Isn't that crazy?
And there's so much content created here.
So much.
So much. And so it was one of those things that, I let it ruminate for a while and thought about the process and what it would take. And the I don't want to say the failure of hot wares, but the non-success of the hot wares business with Catherine really, it's scary to think about doing it again. And so I kind of thought, okay, and I thought of the pitfalls that we had with hot wares, and I kind of thought maybe I should just do this one on my own. Just that way you're only responsible for you. There's no conflicts, there's no whatever, because I've always believed that the partnership that you go into, you're only as good as your partnership, no matter what you have. If you don't have a good partnership and a good balance, it doesn't matter what you have. You're not going to be, in my opinion, you're not going to be successful, because you're going to find a way to screw it up. And so
one of you will,
one of you will. Yeah. And so I really went back and forth. Do I ask Lisa if she wants to do this with me? Because we're such good friends, and she's amazing. But then I was worried about our friendship and the styling, right?
Yeah.
So I went back and forth, and I sat down with a really good friend of mine who had seen me go through the whole hot wares debacle and everything. And she just really made it very clear. Well, what do you want to do? What do you see it? How do you see it working? And I'm like, well, I got to do it with Lisa. I wouldn't do it with anybody else, but I have to. And so it was so clear, which I was so grateful for, because it wasn't one of these, it was just I knew. So I remember talking to Lisa about it. It was just before Christmas. It might have even been Christmas Day, actually. I'm very bad with dates. And I was on the phone with her. I'm like, we got to do this. 50-50, we got to do this. And she's like, are you sure? Like, because you can do this on your, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it on my own. I want us to do this. And it was just amazing. So we just went forward from there. And we started small. We rented the mezzanine in an office in Burnaby just to get ourselves set up. And we got racking, and we didn't rent to anybody. We rented it out for my jobs. And then it was really difficult to find warehouse space. So you're talking going to all these places, and it's hard to find warehouse space that's even available, and expensive. So finding something that would work, and then going in, and no financial record for this company, and 2 women. There was a lot of, we'll let you know. And, oh, absolutely, we really want you in this space. And then, okay, we got it. And then, we rented it to somebody else. We got a lot of that. And it was very disheartening. And it was surprising. We did have, because it was a partnership, we were personally involved. So we still had that track record for us for when you're going to apply to these things. So we kind of thought that would cover the no financial background or the 2 years that everybody likes, because we had our own personal background that we used. So I was very surprised that the fact that we were 2 women weighed so heavily on the decisions. And that's just my take on it. That's just how I felt.
But yeah, it's funny when you just intuitively feel it, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, it happens.
Yeah.
Get these concepts where, people are like, you're like, that, you don't want me in here, do you? You don't believe I can do this, do you?
And you're going through the viewings and you've got these guys coming through in suits and you know, all this, you know, business and all of this and all this. And then here's Lisa and I, and, you know, I don't,
in flowers, being fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're just like, that's, and so we were so lucky. We got this really great space and these people kind of took a chance on us and we were shocked when we got the offer to lease, because we were like, we're never getting that space. There were so many people that wanted it and they said yes. And it was a woman that said yes. So interesting, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I you know, so
I can see Raquel's brain from her brain just being like,
it is.
I'm gonna,
I think though, like a big part of it too, I do think it comes down to being two women. I think it also comes down to people not understanding what you were doing, not understanding the financial structure of it, just having zero concept. Because every time people come out with something new or newish, like there's one place that does it, but this isn't common knowledge. People don't really understand it. They're like, well, clothes go in and out of trend, like whatever, clothes. Sometimes they have a store and then it closes down on Granville Street. Like they're probably thinking of your typical boutique shop. They're probably not even understanding what this is at all.
They don't understand the industry. Careers,
That's exactly
this is
what I was
why.
thinking.
Careers in entertainment, people don't understand, which is why, you know, Liz and I have spoken about this, is putting a spotlight onto these careers, because it's like, you don't go to school to learn how to be in the position that you're currently in, Liz. Like there's no school for entrepreneurship. Like I'm lying. There absolutely are schools that teach entrepreneurship, and courses that help you. But, you know, visibility within this industry and understanding how to navigate is very difficult.
Well, and you created a niche because there was a need.
Well, that was the thing. So, I mean, and we talked to this. Bloody earphones drive me crazy. Sorry, ladies. The ones I was going to use didn't work. The people that we did sort of talk to about it and sort of trying to get a vibe of whether it was going to work and it would be viable was just like, we need this. So, I mean, we even went to, so the people at Vancouver Prop and Costume I've been, you know, known them for the 20 years that I've been doing this, and I adore them. They're so wonderful. And they've become like friends to Lisa and I. So it was a big thing when we decided to do this of saying, we need to go talk to the ladies at VPC.
How was that? How was that conversation?
Okay. So Lisa's she's going to hate me for this one. She's a bit emotional. She cries very easily. And then she makes me cry. If she cries, I cry. So I'm literally like, don't cry. You can't cry, because then I'm going to cry. So we go over there and we're like, okay, kind of need to talk to you guys about something. I'm like, okay, great. So we're over there and I look over and Lisa's already crying. No, I'm like, stop. So literally we just kind of blurted out, listen, we're thinking about starting this rental business. It's going to be 100% contemporary. We're not doing vintage. You guys are, you know, the queens of this game. It's not like we would be any kind of competition or anything like that. But we wanted to talk to you about it and essentially kind of get your blessing. And they just said, oh my God, we're so happy for you. What can we do to help? How can we help you? What do you need?
That gives me chills.
Okay, and then now we're both bawling our eyes. But they were, and have been ever since we started, absolutely the biggest supporters of us. And, you know, it's amazing.
It's what my heart needs today.
Yes, right? And
that goes back to what Christina always says about it not being a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
That there's space for everybody.
There's enough for everyone.
You found this niche. They recognize that.
Yeah.
And so therefore they uplifted instead of trying to compete you out or
right?
force you out.
Right. And so the funny thing is, though, about that with VPC is, so we rented this space in Burnaby and we outgrew it. So fast forward 4 years and we outgrew the space. So we found this space and it's right across the street from VPC. So now we have to go say hi to them as well. Now we have to go back to them and say, oh, by the way, we're going to be across the street from you guys. I hope that's okay too. So it's 4 years later. So now we've got to go do this and talk again. Lisa, don't cry. So we go over there and we put it off and we put it off and we put it off. And we're like, so finally we're literally in the space. We're like, we better go talk to them. So we walk across the street over there. Like I'm looking at the building. I'm looking at their building right now. I'm like, oh, hey, ladies, how's it going? And so anyways, tell them, you know what the response was? Oh, we can have coffee now.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Oh my
that
gosh.
is the support that these ladies have, that these, I shouldn't always refer to them as like these people, these beautiful, beautiful people have given to us. So,
you know what's so awesome though about it is that when you, like, I want to also highlight, yes, the zero sum game thing, and like such big shout out to those two for being such champions. And Raquel and I call them fire friends, when you're like, these are the friends that like, yeah, these are the friends that when you leave a conversation, you're like, oh yeah, I can go and do that thing that I wasn't sure about. Or, you know, you leave uplifted. But I also want to acknowledge how wonderful it was that you took the initiative to go over and have the conversation. And that is a massive, massive piece that I consider to be hugely socially responsible. And that social responsibility goes in every single direction. It's not just about your team. It's not just about your clients. It's about your quote unquote competition that isn't really your competition. No. It's your collaborators, your co-conspirators. Yeah. And potential co-conspirators are often those people that you go out and are in the world with. And so I used to say this with when I started in Divan City, which was a little grassroots music collective when I first moved here. So I spent $3,000 on coffee, asking everyone else I could find who would talk to me in the industry what they did, so I didn't do that. Yeah. And then what came out was me realizing that this was the little niche that no one was doing, but that by me doing it, I'm helping everyone I've spoken to.
Yes, the collective.
And that's what you're doing. You were like, it's not going to be vintage. It's not going to be this because we know you do that and we know that's your bread and butter. We're doing this. Is that cool with you?
But it's also just the honesty component. And I don't even want to just call it honesty. It's
respect.
It's respect. And that's what Christina and I talk about. Like, we tell our team all the time that Christina and I will debate things. We don't agree on everything. There's a lot of things we don't agree on, but we have a foundation of respect for each other. Yeah. So those never cross a line to a point where we feel uncomfortable or
personally
upset
attacked.
Or personally attacked. Yeah. There's a foundation of respect, and we can have the hard conversations. There's things that happen that you're like, hey, you know, this thing happened. We can have that because we know there's that foundation of respect. And I think that is so, not that the respect is missing, but I think what people miss is that when you have that respect, there is a safe space to have the tough conversations, or what you feel are going to be tough and maybe in the end aren't even.
And don't you find that after having those tough, I can't count the number of times of having those conversations that could become conflicts because there are differing opinions, and you come out of it going, I was wrong, or I've changed my mind, or I've thought about it in a different way. Like I joke to say that I will be the first person to say I was wrong. I was wrong. You know, growing up, male figures in my life weren't, sorry, Dad, it's true. You just never apologized. You never said I was wrong. Never heard the man say, he does now. He's evolved, but growing up, not a million years. And so I have value in that, of saying, you know what, I was wrong. I'm okay with that, because to me, I've grown from that, or I've learned from that. It means that I've stepped up. I've moved along, and it's more knowledge for me. It's more information. You know, to me, that is just growth.
That's evolution.
It's evolution, exactly. So to have the respect, to have those conversations is beneficial to everybody. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have the respect, then it just becomes conflict.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And that to me is where I think, not that we're going to go on this tangent, but I think that is where the different sexes come into play of how you deal with differing opinions or differing conflicts. You know?
And actually, we had an amazing conversation with Shay Emery about some of the stereotypes that have disallowed a lot of those masculine traits to become any more like quote unquote feminine, because the reality, those are gender assignments and gender norms that don't have to exist, but societally they do.
Completely
so you have these men that are like, even if I wanted to say sorry, I'm so walled up by society that I can't engage in that way. And then you have like all these different layers of walls between, you know, your stereotypical X, Y, and Z, the binary thinking of X, Y, and Z, and then all of the colors and the palettes in between. And to me, and one of the things that I love that Raquel and I get to do with this show is break down the grayness and be like, okay, is this gender? Is this, you know, where are we at today in the world, in our neighborhood, in our society, and where could we go rather
That's the
than
beauty of it, right? Mm-hmm. Where could we go and
where could we go?
Where are we going and how fast are we getting there? I mean,
and what do we want to do about it?
Yeah. How can we get there faster? Because things take time and things like that. But when you see where it could be, you just want it to get there.
And again, I think that comes down to, you know, you have such a high level of emotional intelligence and awareness where you will turn around and say, okay, we want to do this thing. I've actively iterated from my first project, from my first, you know, quote unquote failure. You've normalized the failure enough that you can take it on again and create a next level of resilience, and then have this partnership, which just going back to that, you know, Raquel and I was waiting for Raquel to jump in with that very similar story where she wanted to do bombshell brunches in a new way. I had no concept of that. And she was like, initially she was going to do it by herself. And this is how the story goes. And she then approached me and said, no, I want to do this with you. And we weren't even that close at the time. She just recognized some of, I think, and I, you know, tell me if I'm just putting words in your mouth, but some of the complementary things and the shared passion that we have and the shared values that we have. And she saw it like she often does, that I will never admit out loud again. So you can just blank this out of the recording.
It's recorded.
It's recording.
She sees things sometimes before I do and recognizes that I go into full-blown panic mode and then normalize it in about a week. So she says, I want to do this. I'm like, here's why we can't do that. Here's why and she knows that it's going to happen. But
I just waited out.
Yeah.
You're very patient.
Okay. But going back to that emotional awareness. And that's what I think is a really great element to kind of share with everybody, is that when you're starting in these ventures, your decision-making criteria cannot just be numbers. It has to be, who do I want on my team? Why do I want them? And what do they stand for? And how do we complement each other?
And it's the gut instinct, because actually, Christina, you're totally right. As you were telling your story about how you knew your friend had to be the one you had to do this with, Christina's right. So we met up and I was like, yeah, I want to do this thing. And I was thinking, like, Christina has the whole live event side on lock and she's busy as all hell. So I was like, there's no way she's going to want to do this. But we met up and I was trying to like tell her, this is what I want to do. I want to have a new vertical to Bombshells. I want to do a podcast. Like, you can continue with the events. But as I'm telling her about the podcast, I was like, this has to be something we do together. It was that moment, that intuition, that click where I was just, it wasn't even a strategic thought. It was just like, this is the right move.
Yeah. You just know it.
You just know. And I think you knew too, Christina. You could feel the switch. She did. I could see it.
I will always deny. I will always deny. I will actively deny this.
But it was one of those aha moments. And Christina's totally right. We had gotten together a handful of times. It was always a great time, and we were very much on the same level when we got together. And I think our brains are very complementary. Yeah. But we had never worked specifically together. We weren't fast friends where we hung out, you know, all the time. I mean, I think it had been probably 6 months or a year, but like since we had seen each other at that point. But it was just that intuition that you're like, this is right. And honest to God, this podcast would not be here today the way it is. And the growth wouldn't be in sight had we not done this together.
Together, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly the same as us. I constantly think about where we are, and I never would have made it this far. I never would have done this on my own. I mean, not saying, no, I just wouldn't have. It's been way too hard. It's been way too hard and challenging, and that's splitting all those challenges and those struggles in half. And
having the emotional support too.
Yes. I am constantly. We joked about tattoos and things, and our thing is just grateful, because the number of times we're just like so grateful, even through the challenges. And you know, it's funny because that's where your joy can come from, right? When you're grateful. And I learned that in a number of years ago, probably about 6 years ago. I was doing my styling, and I guess, you know, I've been doing it for about, 12 or 14 years, and I got really tired of it, and I just saw the negatives, and I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I hate this. I hate doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't even know exactly what it was at the time, whether it was a slowdown in the industry, and the work wasn't really readily there as it was. And I realized that this was a gift. I get to do this. It's not a right. And I found my gratitude for it, that I'm allowed to do this, and it's going to pay me well for it. And I don't have any schooling behind me to fall back on. I don't have, no credentials, all that kind of thing. This is a gift. And I found my gratitude for it, and I found my love for it again. And every day I'm just grateful that I get to do, in the styling part of it, not just project wardrobe, but in the styling part of it, just joyful. And I know it's an overused word, but it's just the only word. I'm just grateful that I get to do this.
I think that's such an amazing point. So I moved to Amsterdam last year, and it was mid-COVID, so I was by myself. I didn't have friends around. I didn't have family around. I was in a full-time master's program and then juggling bombshells. Like, it was just insanity. Wow. But that was what I did as well. So every morning I wrote 3 things that I was grateful for. But my number one was always, I am so grateful I have the opportunity to have higher level education. Yeah. So many people in the world would love to have this opportunity and can't. And it didn't matter how insane the exams were, how much work I had on my plate, how much else I had to do. It was like, I have this opportunity, and so much of this world doesn't. And that really, really, really changed my perspective as well. Because it's so easy to get pulled into that, well, I'm just so stressed. I just have this. I just have that. But you're totally right. You find a joy for it because it is not all right.
Meanwhile, I was stressed about her exams, and I was just sitting there in a corner like, oh no, she's got technical problems. And so I'm like the Eeyore in the corner, and the piglet that's just like, is it gonna be okay? No. And she's the Winnie the Pooh. She's just the Pooh that's like, look at this honey pot, everything's great. And I'm like, it's not great, everything's not gonna be fine. And then I switch between being Piglet and Eeyore, so I'm like, it's not gonna be fine, I've gotta go to sleep. And then I wake up again and I'm like, is everything okay now? And Raquel's still sitting there going, I failed this exam, but I'm just going to retake it. And I'm like, she failed an exam. What does that mean about the podcast? Is she going to get on for the guests?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's always your first question. Are you leaving Bombshells? I'm not leaving Bombshells. Nothing's going to make me leave Bombshells. I'm good. Okay.
I would hope
I'm like, do you need to not do this? Do I need to do this? I don't want to do this by myself.
Oh my God. No.
And likewise, like Christina, she was like, I have this thing. I might be moving. This thing might happen. And what about Bombshells? And I said, Christina, you're not leaving Bombshells. It's just not going to happen. Don't even worry about it. This isn't a thing. I know you, and we will do what we have to do to make this happen.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's what you do.
Exactly.
You just make it happen.
Yep.
And that's a partnership. That's, you have someone, I mean, that's the difference too, I think, when you're doing something completely on your own versus when you have an amazing team or partnership that you can lean on, where people can say, you know what, I know you're fully loaded right now. I got you. Show up for the recordings. Everything else is taken care of. But just show up, and until the next month or two, when things settle down for you, we'll reel you back in.
And we'll figure it out. We'll just figure it out. Whatever you need,
just figure it out.
We'll figure it out. And so the funny thing for Project Wardrobe for us was, so COVID was, I don't know if you're supposed to, a bitch for the film industry. It was a bitch. Because we shut down completely. We shut down completely, and we are in a warehouse. So it was twofold for me. I couldn't get in, I didn't have any work as a commercial stylist, and the business wasn't getting any work because there were no there were no stylists at all. Nothing was happening. And our landlord at the time said, you know what, we didn't get that whole, what was it, mortgage deferral?
The support?
The support, So you owe us your lease. But we're like, but we're closed. Yeah. Oh, no, you still owe us. You still owe us. And so, you know, can you guys imagine trying to deal with that by yourself?
No. No.
Like, because
no.
Background story, my partner, Jeff, he is a stay-at-home dad with our kids. So it's just me.
Wow.
Wow. And so it was really, really, really tough. So I'm
starting to freak out.
Right?
This story already.
I'm stress sweating. And so we had 2 part-time employees that we had that ran Project Wardrobe on a day-to-day, Monday to Friday basis, because Lisa and I were still doing our commercial thing. So we had to let them go at COVID, and then skip the whole drama of COVID, because I honestly think that is for a whole nother podcast, because we could, I mean, all of us probably could for COVID.
Just sit in a circle and cry for 3 days.
There would have to be a lot of wine, Christina. We would have to do a lot of wine to get through that podcast. I'm not going to lie. So we came back when we reopened, and we went back to the 2 ladies that were working for us, and they had gotten other jobs, which is great. Thank goodness, right? So Lisa and I were like, what are we going to do? We need somebody to run this. And my sister was working for a development company, and they closed down for COVID. And as everything did with COVID, everything changed. People restructured. Things were never the same. And so when they restructured, and people working from home, so they closed their office down and everything. So Nancy's job, my sister's job, became obsolete. She didn't have anything to go back to. So Lisa and I talked about it, and I'm like, what do you think? You know? And we were like, yes. Because Lisa and I have always said, like, the 2 ladies that worked for us were great, but this is our baby. This is personal for us. Project Wardrobe is our baby. Like, we care about it viscerally, right? So we've always said we want to be able to clone ourselves and have somebody that cares that passionately for it as we do. And so I said to Nancy, like, what do you think? Do you want to give this a go? And long story short, she just said, I absolutely do. If you'll have me. She was grateful too, which to me, her gratitude for the opportunity was the biggest indicator that this was going to be a smashing success. And so now she runs it Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I get to work almost every day with my sister and my best friend.
Oh, so
I
love that.
Stand it. It's amazing. It's amazing. So gratitude level so high. It's just incredible. And she cares about it. And I mean, honestly, there's nothing more we could have wished for in this. It's just, we're so blessed. It's insane. It's insane.
That's what I always feel like. Like life takes you through this roller coaster. And when you're on those downhills and it just feels like you've completely lost control, You probably have.
Yes.
So just hold on.
I probably never had it.
But, well, you had it because you chose to go on it. But, you know, when it goes downhill, it's going to go back up. It's going to slow down. It's going to level out. You can't go downhill the whole time. So just hold on, you know, do what you got to do to just ride through the storm.
Yeah.
And things are going to settle. And
that's when
you're going to get perspective.
That's when you need those people in your life to remind you of that. And to confirm that in you, and whether it be an hourly basis or a daily basis or whatever. Because when things get bad, you know, my sort of saying has always been, you know, people say it's day at a time, just go day by day. And honestly, when things are bad, my saying is just go hour by hour, get through the hour, and then you'll be one step further. Get through that next hour, and eventually you'll get through the day when it's really bad, and then you'll get to a point where you can say, just get through the day. And things will start to get better. But you've got to have that mentality. Just baby steps. Just get through it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those people in your life to help you remember that, or to pick you up when you fall and just like hold your hand as you walk and you go hour by hour, day by day, it's hard to imagine how to do it. It's just hard.
This is why I know this is why, again, another piece to this is why I love working in entertainment, because when you don't have a person, like for me, when I didn't have someone who understood me at a level, I found a song. When I didn't have someone who could help me process an emotion, one arrived in a film. And the reason I love entertainment is because it gives you the freedom of choice to process your feelings safely. And when you listen to a song, like I played a show the other day, and I've got a few shows coming up, like outdoor shows that I get to play. And the best compliments I get are when people come up to me and say, I am so grateful that I knew what I felt, but I didn't have words until I heard them from you.
Wow.
And that makes all the difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Huge. So, you know, you working in entertainment, a lot of people think, oh, you're just an entertainer. I'm like, no. We help you process your emotions.
Or authors. Like I always think if
writing,
I can dig
books.
into a book,
Yes.
and I'll often do audiobooks, and I'll just go walk. I'll just walk, and I won't stop until I feel like I need to stop. Sometimes it's a 4-hour walk, and I'm listening, and it's just like having a best friend there. It's like, okay, reiterate, we'll be fine. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to happen.
Totally.
I want to dig into some of the styling questions. So really digging in. Because we've gone full on business, which I love. This is like my passion and love, but you actually are a stylist. So
Yes.
One of the things that I think are so important, and a lot of our listeners are either at this stage or going to be at this stage soon, or have just kind of transitioned from this stage. But between your 20s and 30s, I find that the hardest time for style, because you're going from this like trendy, younger, different body type kind of a thing. Your face shape is different. And then as you get older, you want to be taken more seriously. You might be rising up in your career. You don't want to be the junior person anymore. You know, again, your face shape changes, all of these things. Maybe your life is different. So you're not clubbing and doing all these things. You need a wardrobe that matches brunches and whatever else. I think that transition is so difficult, especially when trying to keep your personality. Like it's one thing, you can just go into Banana Republic or Zara or whatever and dress appropriate for your job. But I find so many people feel, and I felt that way, it took me years, that you lose your personality. So what recommendations do you have for people who are trying to kind of find that new stage in their life, but want to hold on to themselves?
Be open. Because Christina, you know this. I mean, you go into a wardrobe fitting and you put something on, you're like, oh my God, I love this. But I never in a million years would I have bought this or tried it on.
Yeah.
So you've got to be open, because you don't know. Same thing with life in general, probably. But if you don't try something that might be outside your comfort zone, you don't know if it's going to fit. you and your lifestyle and
Right.
your person and the person that you want to portray and become and embrace. So, I mean, I don't do personal styling for many, many reasons, but I have done it for a couple of friends. And I just literally, the only thing I say is, I give it to you and you try it on. I don't care if you say it's something you would never wear. Try it on. Just try it. Because you don't know until you've tried it. And the number of times you try it on and they're like, oh my God, I love this. But you don't know until you try it. So you've got to stay open. You've got to try lots of different things, even if it's something that you think, I mean, you know, whatever, however many times out of the times that you try, you're going to say, yeah, I'd never wear this. But you don't know until you, because also that stuff that you do try on that doesn't work might be something that you think, oh, that would have been perfect. So for me, I guess because of doing this for so long, you just get to know what works. And that's from trying other things and doing those things. So, and staying open. So for me now, after doing this for 20 years for myself personally, I have never tried something on in a store in probably 15 years. And 99% of the time when I buy something for myself, I know it's going to work. Because you get
used where I want to be.
Right? You get used to figuring it out. But you've got to try all these things first. Yeah. But I have the luxury of trying things on other people too. Right? So I don't just get to see these things on other people and see what works. I get to see them on other people and see what works for them and why it works or why it doesn't work. So, I mean, I'm on the fast track for that because I have so much more. I get to see it so much more, not just on me, but in general. But honestly, that's the biggest thing I can say. And you know, the whole, what's that woman's name? Marie Kondo or Kondo?
Kondo,
right?
Yeah.
The one.
Kondo,
Okay.
Marie Kondo.
Yeah.
Getting rid of stuff.
Does it? What is the saying? I've never seen it, but I've talked to lots of people.
Does it spark joy?
Does it spark joy? And you don't know if it sparks joy until you wear it. So my thing is, I have way too many clothes. I have way too much stuff. It's a problem, but I love it all. And so when I try to get rid of things and pass things on, I do a one, and I'll tell other people to do this too. Wear it once. Even if you just wear it around the house, you wear it to go to Superstore, you wear it to go pick up your kids, you wear it for a walk. Just wear it once before you get rid of it if you're not sure. And you will know. You'll either wear it and go, oh my God, I love this. Why have I not worn this in so long? Or you'll be like, nah, I think I can let this go.
Right.
Oh, I think that's so important. And I think there's something to be said for bringing someone different with you shopping. Because I was at Christina's house the other day and I didn't have a jacket. I can't remember where we were before that. Photo shoot? Video shoot? Something.
Right. One of the things.
Yeah, we were at one of the things and then I came over to her house and it started raining. So she's like, oh, throw on this jacket. I would never have picked up this jacket. Right? But I put on this jacket and I was like, I felt so elegant. Yep. And then I found myself I was walking down the street and I would see a window and I was like, oh yes, I'm just so elegant in this jacket.
It was a Leonard Taylor. It was Leonard Taylor.
And it had this stunning. Cut, and it makes your legs look like they're up to here. And I was just like, this is
Liz,
incredible.
I'll send you the link to Leonard's
and it was
stuff.
cape-like and it had this big collar. And I would never, on the rack, I would never have put it on. Or I would have been worried about things because it was kind of like not fully to your wrist. And I would have been like, oh, I'll get cold in that. But when I actually tried it on, I didn't feel that way at all. I think it's so important, but to have Christina's clothing, I guess, wasn't your input, but it was actually your clothing.
Yeah.
And to put that on, it's your style. Yeah. Yep. Something, and I was like, wow, I need to go shopping with Christina.
Yeah. Well, look, we need to, I know we haven't had a lot of time to talk about clothing, but I am so happy that we got to have a conversation about entrepreneurship and about fast friendship and fierce friends and teamwork, you know. So, you know, before we go, I wanted to say thank you for really demonstrating normalizing not knowing where you're going. Are we back?
Well, I mean, I unfortunately I lost a little bit of that from the audio didn't come through. So I'm like, oh my gosh, the one time for the audio, I couldn't hear what you said, but I'm sure it was.
It was all the compliments.
I know. I'm sitting
It was all the compliments
probably
at the
good
end.
I didn't hear
It
it.
was all
I'd
the
probably start crying.
Well, Liz, we're going to come around and do some social things with you.
Yes.
I'm gonna pop by. We're going to do some reels. So, where can we find you on Instagram?
I am Lily Lucy Lou, LILYLUCELU. Those are my 3 nicknames. When my sister had her first baby, when I had my niece, I'm like, I can't be Aunt Liz. Because don't you just picture Aunt Liz being the woman with the curlers in her hair and the bathrobe and a smoke in one hand and a beer in the other? Aunt Liz. So my mom's always called me Lily. So that's why it's Lily. Lucy Lou. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll add all the links. And Liz, thank you so much again. You've been absolutely amazing.
Oh my gosh. You ladies are too fun. This has been too fun. Like, it's ridiculous. I had no idea what to expect, but I really didn't think it was. I mean, this was so much fun.
We're going to do more.
You.
We'll see you in person soon.
Oh, yes.
Can't wait.
Oh, yes.
Well, keep killing it, ladies. You ladies are amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening, Bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.